flavor of the rice with that teriyaki sauce. Okay, so we are going to head in a little different direction today with our recipes, and we're gonna visit more like the Asian regions and just experiment with those kinds of recipes. And I wouldn't call these meals like authentic Asian cuisines, but they definitely have those vibes and those flavors. So if you are craving Chinese takeout, you may want to rethink that. Put away your wallet and settle for these healthy and flavorful homemade Asian inspired dishes. They're so delicious, super easy to make, using fresh vegetables. There's lots of protein. It's just, these are meals that are just a great homemade version of maybe some of the dishes that you order when you're out at Chinese. Well, I am so glad that you're here with me today. If we haven't met, my name is Ange. Welcome, and this is the Menu Made Kitchen. Okay, so for our teriyaki chicken bake, I'm gonna start by prepping some of my vegetables. I've already started with the broccoli, and I'm just making sure that they're all roughly about the same size. If you see some bigger pieces, just cut those in half. You can also use a 12-ounce bag of frozen vegetables if you want to make this super easy. I just really like the flavor and texture of fresh veggies, and because this recipe only calls for about 2 cups, it's not that much work. So, and then I also want to make sure to cut the carrots pretty thin because they're going to take the longest to cook. So I just do them in little round shapes like this and just get them as thin as I possibly can. You can also use like a mandolin. So I'm gonna get the rest of these veggies prepped, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so now we're gonna make the teriyaki sauce. This is a super simple sauce. We're gonna start with a little bit of water. I've got a half a cup of water, and then I'm gonna add in 3/4 cup of low sodium soy sauce. I also have 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce. This is definitely optional, but it's such a rich flavor, and I feel like it just really adds a little something special to the teriyaki sauce. So I'm gonna do just 1 tablespoon of that. And do you like my, my baby spoon? These were my daughter's baby spoons, and she's 18 years old. But I love them for things like this, when I can kind of get down in there and get the little bits on the bottom. Thank you, Gerber. And then we're gonna add in 1 minced garlic. This is just like a medium-sized garlic, but you can actually, if you love garlic, feel free to add more. And then I'm gonna do a half a teaspoon of ground ginger. Add that in. You can also grate in some fresh ginger if you have that on hand. And then I'm gonna do a pinch of red pepper flakes because we like just a little bit of heat, not a lot, just a scotch. Okay, so we'll just whisk this together until it's nice and combined. And you know what? I was actually going to add this to my saucepan because that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to pour this into a saucepan, so don't dirty an extra dish. We'll just add this in here. And then I'm going to place a lid on this, and we're going to put this on the stove and bring it to like a medium boil. And once it starts boiling, we'll cook this down for just a few minutes, and then I'll pull the lid off and we'll add a little bit of cornstarch just to kind of thicken up our sauce a little bit. So while that happens, we're gonna get over to the cutting board and get our chicken prepped. So for our chicken, I've got a couple of large chicken breasts. I like the pieces to be pretty small, about like the same size as the vegetables, really. You can do chicken thighs. You can actually put both of these chicken breasts in the casserole whole and then shred it when it's cooked. But I'm gonna cube these up because I like just the little diced pieces of chicken so that every bite has just that texture. So I'm gonna get these prepped and chopped up. All right, you guys, I totally forgot my brown sugar. So we have a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. You can also use like your favorite sugar substitute. So if you want to do like we use the Swerve brand of brown sugar, just to make this a little lower sugar, you can definitely use that. It works perfect in this recipe, but I'm just gonna do regular brown sugar. I'm just gonna stir this in. It melted pretty much instantly because this was nice and hot. So I've got my baking dish here. I've sprayed it with nonstick cooking spray, and I'm gonna add all of my chicken. Let's jump that in. I'm just gonna kind of spread it out a little bit until it's kind of a nice even layer. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna take all of our veggies, and I'm just gonna scatter them all over the chicken. You don't even have to mix this in. I'm just gonna make sure again that this is kind of in an even layer. Right now we just wanna get the vegetables and the chicken cooked. And then I'm gonna add 1 cup of our teriyaki sauce here. I'm just gonna take my sauce and just pour it over the top of the veggies and the chicken. Again, we're not gonna stir this in. I'm just gonna add just a little bit. So we're gonna put foil on this, and I'm gonna pop this into a 350-degree oven, and we're gonna cook this about 30 minutes, and then we'll remove the foil and we can move on with the rest of the steps. While that bakes in the oven, I just wanted to talk to you real quick about the rice. My favorite kind of rice to use for like any kind of Asian dish is either basmati or jasmine. Basmati preferably because I really like the texture and it's just kind of light and fluffy. You can do any kind of long grain white rice. You could do brown rice if you want it to be a little healthier and just add a little more nutrition. You could even do like the bags of like Uncle Ben's rice and heat that up so that you don't have to do any kind of cooking of the rice. So there's just lots of different options. You could even do cauliflower rice if you want it to be more low carb, and then use like your favorite brown sugar substitute. So there's lots of ways to like modify this depending on kind of your own health goals and your own diet. Just have fun with it and play with it. Do different veggies in there. This is also a great recipe to add some different veggies. I love this recipe because it's so versatile. So each time I make it, it's a little bit different because depending on what I have on hand is kind of what goes into the casserole. So I just pulled this out of the oven. I had to leave it in for an additional 10 minutes. So it was in the oven for about 40 minutes total. You can kind of see it looks about the same as it did when we put it in. There's definitely some liquid at the bottom of your pan. But that's great because once we put the rice in and the rest of the sauce, the rice will absorb all of that. It'll be perfect. Okay, so I've got 3 cups of my basmati rice. I'm just gonna add that in. Whoa, that about went over the edge. Okay, so we'll just throw that in. And then I've reserved about a couple tablespoons of sauce to put over the top. So I'm just gonna add in this remaining, it's probably quarter cup of sauce. I'm just gonna pour that over the rice. So I'm just gonna give this a stir and combine everything. So we're gonna get this back in the oven. At this point, we're just kind of warming everything through, making sure the sauce and the rice is nice and hot. And then we're gonna top it with a couple of things and it'll be ready to try. All right, check this out. Doesn't this look so good? Like it's such a healthy, like lots of veggies and chicken. So I'm gonna add a sprinkling of green onion over the top of this. Totally optional. I just like kind of that fresh green onion flavor, especially with teriyaki sauce. I like to add some toasted sesame seeds. This just adds a nice little crunch. You could do some cashews or almond slices. That would be good. And then, like I said, I had a little bit of sauce left over and I'm just gonna get a small spoon. Okay, I just warmed it up a little bit to make it a little bit easier to drizzle on there. And it's not a lot, it just adds some color, it makes it look kind of pretty. So I just like to kind of drizzle the top a little bit. Yum. Doesn't that look delicious? And so beautiful. I love all the colors of the vegetables. Okay, I gotta get like the perfect bite. That teriyaki sauce, I mean, when you make the sauce and you put it into the casserole, you almost feel like this isn't gonna be enough. It is plenty. This is perfectly saucy, but not like drippy. The flavor of the rice with that teriyaki sauce, if you like your vegetables really soft, I would encourage you to put them in the microwave or put them on the stove and pre-cook them a little bit before you do the casserole, because these are definitely like, they're not crispy, but they're definitely kind of al dente vegetables. And the chicken is so tender. This kind of meal makes me so happy. I love feeding this kind of stuff to my family because I feel like I'm giving them a complete meal. You've got lots of veg, your protein. This is always a winter dinner. I just love it. I'm so excited to share this recipe with you. These are my Asian lettuce wraps, and they're made with ground turkey, but you can do ground beef or ground chicken. There's lots of other variations. You don't even have to do meat if you don't want to. But I love this recipe because it comes together super, super quickly. I'm gonna do some shortcuts today. I've got some sliced mushrooms. Usually I buy the whole button mushrooms and chop them up, but I'm gonna use about half this container and chop up the mushrooms into tiny pieces. You want all of the ingredients to be really small. I'm actually gonna grate the carrot, and then my pepper will be diced into little tiny pieces along with my green onion. And then I'm actually using butter lettuce for these lettuce wraps. Sometimes I'll do iceberg, but if I want to really treat us and our family, I'll buy a thing of buttered lettuce because it is so good. Like the name explains itself. It is buttery and tender, and it holds up the filling really well. I'm gonna get the lettuce washed and all my veggies prepped, and then we're gonna move over to the stove because, like I said, this comes together really fast. All right, now that our veggies are prepped and our lettuce is washed, I'm gonna make the sauce. So we're gonna start with 6 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. I love this recipe because it's just so simple. Like the sauce ingredients are simple. We don't really have to add much to it. It's just throw everything in a bowl and mix it up and you're good to go. And then we're gonna do 4 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. And then I'm gonna do 3 tablespoons of rice vinegar. This just adds really nice flavor. You can definitely do white vinegar if you don't have rice vinegar on hand. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but I found this out at Christmas time, that sriracha sauce is really hard to find. And if you do find it, it's like insanely expensive. I did not know that. And we've actually had this sriracha for quite a while. You know, I don't even know if it's expired, actually. That's pretty sad. Oh, it's at the end of 2023. We're good. But you can definitely use any kind of chili sauce that you have on hand, or a hot sauce. The sriracha and chili sauce does have some other flavors in it. It's got some garlic and that kind of thing. So it will add that flavor, and it is dripping all over. I don't know what's happening here. But I'm going to add in about 2 to 3 teaspoons of sriracha. We'll just squeeze that right in. Perfect. But like I said, you can use any kind of chili sauce that you have on hand. You could even do like red pepper flakes to add kind of that spicy element. Okay, so I'm gonna get this whisked up. Okay, so let's move over to the stove and we're gonna get our ground beef or our ground turkey going. Okay, we've got a ginormous skillet here, and then I'm gonna add about 1.5 tablespoons of toasted sesame oil. This is really gonna add great flavor. If you don't have toasted sesame oil, that's totally fine. You can definitely do olive oil, but this just gives it such great flavor. So we're gonna add in our ground turkey. We have 1 pound of ground turkey. So we're just gonna cook this, and I'll just break it into crumbles just like you would any other ground meat, and basically cook it until it's no longer pink, and then we'll add in the rest of our ingredients. All right, our ground turkey is no longer pink, and I am ready to throw in these vegetables. Look at all of that. Yum. I think another reason that I love this recipe is I don't have to cook the meat and the veggies separately. It's not like a wok experience where you have to like sear each category so that it's perfectly cooked. And it's just fast and delicious. I love that. All right, so these veggies are gonna take about 5 minutes or so to cook and just kind of release some of the moisture from the mushrooms. We're going to talk about the mushroom situation while these cook here. Do you have to use mushrooms in this recipe? That is the question. And no, actually you don't. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But I will say my daughter absolutely hates mushrooms, like detests them. But she will eat them in this recipe because I have them chopped up so fine, and after everything cooks you don't even know that they're in there. I mean, somebody would have to really have an eye for it because the ground turkey is kind of the same color. And because they're so small, you don't have that mushroom texture. I think for my daughter Avery, it's the texture, it's not so much the flavor. And so the little tiny, tiny pieces of it in there and then cooked down with everything else, you don't even know it's in there. But you can certainly leave them out. You can add more veggies. You could chop up some broccoli super fine, or maybe just add more carrots or more of the other vegetables that we had put in there. But I just really encourage you to try it. I just want to make sure that I covered the mushroom situation because I know not everybody loves them. All right, so I am clearly very forgetful these days. I also need to add in a can of diced water chestnuts. So these are super convenient. I don't even have to cut them. So I'm just gonna add in the entire can. I've drained them. So we'll add that in. This adds such nice crunch to this. I feel like it's just not the same without the water chestnuts. So I would really encourage you, unless you're allergic, to add these in because they just add really great texture. Okay, now we can finish cooking what we need to cook here. Our veggies are tender, so I'm gonna go ahead and add in our sauce. Just pour this right over the top of the veggies and the ground turkey. I'm gonna add a little bit of water just to get the rest of that out of there. There we go. Okay, so at this point, I'm just gonna cook this about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just warming the sauce through and making sure it has a chance to coat all of the veggies and the meat. Give this a stir, and then we are ready to taste this. Oh my gosh, look at that. I had to like re-tie my hair back because I'm telling you guys, it's gonna get messy. So what I love to do is I like to add just a teensy bit of soy sauce to the top of each one. And then I'll top it with a little bit of green onion just to add some freshness and some toasted sesame seeds. Okay, we're going in. But it's messy. I'm telling you, these are really messy. You can see it's like dripping. It's like a little taco. Those water chestnuts with that, like the tender ground turkey and that sauce. Guys, I am telling you, this will be a new weeknight favorite. And it's healthy and light. I will be definitely eating this for lunch tomorrow. I'm so excited. All right, so for our beef and broccoli stir fry, I'm gonna start by heating up our sauce in our saucepan here. This is only 2 ingredients. I've got some low sodium soy sauce, and then I'm gonna use this Swerve confectioner sweetener. You can also just do regular sugar. I'm just trying to keep the meal a little bit low carb tonight. I try to do that during the weekdays for our low carber in the family. So I'm gonna do a 1/3 cup of low sodium soy sauce. Okay, add that in. And then I'm gonna do 3 tablespoons of this Swerve confectioner sugar. All right, so I'm just gonna whisk this a little bit here until the sugar kind of melts into that soy sauce. And then I'm gonna put this on the stove and I'm just gonna set it to low and just let it kind of warm up. It doesn't need to really come to a boil or anything. It'll just kind of simmer in the pot while we're working on the rest of the ingredients. Okay, so while your sauce heats up, you're gonna wanna get the rest of your ingredients together. I've already kind of pre-done everything just to make this a little bit quicker, but I've got 4 cups of broccoli, fresh broccoli. And then for our steak, I'm using top sirloin. This is a really inexpensive cut of meat and it still comes out really tender. As long as you slice it against the grain and it's done super, super thin, then the steak is perfect. Traditionally for recipes like this, a ribeye would be the most common, but sometimes those are really expensive and I find that the top sirloin is just as good. So when I mean cutting against the grain, so the grains are kind of going this way on the steak, so I'm just gonna cut it the opposite way. And again, just doing it really thin. So what we wanna do now is I'm gonna add my beef here to a Ziploc bag. I'm just gonna add all these little strips in here. And then we are gonna add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. That's gonna coat the beef really, really lightly. We're not breading the beef. It just gives it a really light coating. It will help kind of thicken the sauce a bit once we add everything together. I'm gonna get this tablespoon of cornstarch in here and then we'll shake it up and then we can head over to our skillet. All right, so our pan is nice and hot and I'm gonna add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. And then because we've added the beef to the bag with the cornstarch, sometimes it gets kind of clumped together. So just use your hands or tongs just to kind of pull the strips apart a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Once it starts cooking in the pan, it'll separate. So I'm gonna get the beef into the pan here and start getting it cooked. We'll do that about 4 or 5 minutes. Like I said, super quick. We don't wanna overcook the beef. So we're going to add in our broccoli here. And then we're also going to add in our beef stock. I've got a half a cup of beef stock. I'll pour that in. And we're just going to simmer the broccoli here for about 10 minutes or so until it's tender. I don't want the broccoli to be mushy and I still want it to have a nice bright color. I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit and get this simmering. Okay, so we're about 6 minutes in and you can see that all of the beef broth is absorbed into the veggies, and these are just about how I like them. I'm going to go a couple of more minutes and then we're going to add in the beef and the sauce, but you can certainly cook these as long as you want them, as tender or soft as you like them. All right, my broccoli is exactly how I want it, so I'm going to add the beef and the sauce to the pan, and then I'm just going to stir everything together, cook it another minute or two until everything is coated and it's ready to serve. Okay, doesn't this just look so appetizing? Like, I love the presentation. It's just beautiful. This is technically a low carb dinner. You saw that I used the Swerve sweetener, but you can definitely use regular sugar. So you could serve this over cauliflower rice or just eat it just like it is. It's delicious just like that. But I had some rice in the refrigerator, so I wanted to kind of try the whole package, like the perfect bite, right? All right, look at that. Okay. Oh man. I am always shocked that just a couple of ingredients for the sauce makes it this delicious. It's got that saltiness to it, the sweetness from the sugar. The beef broth really gives it some savoriness. This beef is so tender, you guys. I love this recipe and it's so fast to make. I don't feel like we have a lot of good like Asian restaurants in the area. Either that or I just haven't found them yet, but when it's so easy to make at home like this, like, why not? And it's so much healthier. You know what's going into the ingredients. I know that my husband's gonna enjoy this tonight. I am so glad that we got to spend some time in the kitchen today. I hope that you feel inspired to try something new, and don't forget, all of the recipes can be found down in the descriptions. I've got links for all of them. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so. And if you want to be notified every time I post a new video, tap the little bell. And I hope you have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time.